I will be traveling to Alfred University. I plan and will make the February Performing Arts Dance Show, which is one of the major reasons why I'm going. The other major reason is I do a lot of artwork giving food away, which sounds simple, I can give food to anyone, but I tend to give food to people when they need it. And I do a lot of work with the homeless. I've done work with other things. But what I realize is often, whether you live in the first world or not, you might not be well fed. And so I've seen a lot of my friends be in situations where they needed a meal. So, that being said, the AU Performing Arts Department is putting on the show in February. And the show is wonderful. I've enjoyed it immensely, both as a performer and an audience member. This time I will be attending just as an audience member, but I wanted to denote that the performers are so dedicated to the practice that they spend a week preparing and getting everything ready, and then the last 3 or 4 days they put on the show. But as time goes on, their body becomes less and less able, in that they are pushing it to the limit and they are not putting back what is needed, whether it be rest or sustenance. So, what I would like to do is to prepare a meal each night of the tech week going into the performance, to offer them the sustenance they need to both stay there for multiple hours. Each night of tech week is 4, 5+ hours. But also to kind of give them the strength they need to perform for everyone.
I know Michael from when he was a student here, and he was a dancer. He auditioned to be in Crystal Redding's piece, so he performed in a trio a couple years ago. I don't even remember how many years ago, but he was beautiful, very good performer. And then after he graduated, he was still a vital part of our arts community, working at what was Kinfolk, which is now the Rogue Carrot, which is such an important part of our community. And he's always been a very generous artist, both on the stage and off the stage. So he and another guy, Brian Pierce, and another guy, we call him Gonzo, Daniel Gonzalez, that's the same, started this tradition of, and I think Michael might have started it before the other guys. I can't remember who started it, but of making food for the dancers, which was great because a lot of the dancers would run over to Aid Hall, eat something terrible, not because Aid Hall was terrible, but what they picked was terrible, and then come back, and because it's always in February, one of my dancers slipped and sprained their ankle. So it was great to be able to have food here as part of the company, but also what Michael creates is really healthy food that's local, and he supports Don Bennett at the Rogue Carrot, which is such a great store, and then we benefit because our dancers eat well and then they dance better, because otherwise I've got dancers out there eating candy right before they perform, thinking that they're going to be okay, and their adrenaline is jacked up. And so I feel like he's feeding us in many ways. And what I like about Michael is I like that he really views art and generosity and community as a whole, and that they all feed each other. So I really appreciate that approach, and I feel like as artists we do need all the support we can get, both through nutrition, but also through love and community. He's great.
Well, Michael is a really layered person for me. When I first think about Michael, I think about the beginnings of him being an Alfred and being one of the first professors he probably met in his freshman year. And then he had an energy. He was trying to figure it out. He was trying to find out where he fit and what he wanted to do. And what was interesting was that he thought he knew very clearly what he wanted to do. He tried all sorts of things. He didn't limit himself. Somewhere along the line, he got the message that he didn't have to do what he thought he came here to do.
Right.
And he experienced a lot of different things. So he learned to dance. He became really involved in that. He became a real community person. He not only got involved in Alfred, but he got involved beyond Alfred. He was one of the first people who started the local gardens and the local
That's right. The farmers market.
Farmers market, yeah. He started him and, you know, so he was like the first employee of trying to get the farmers market going here in
That's
Alfred.
Right.
And so he's very interested in food. He was very interested in community from day one.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is when he came into the school, there was no place for someone to think about social practice. There was the kind of the beginnings of those things.
Right.
So we're a richer community now where that exists. Where there's kind of classes and learning and thinking about how you extend your practice into something that is beyond kind of making an object or you know, it allows you to kind of communicate and be a part of the place you live. So I think it's really wonderful that we have this example of one of our students who's now this young artist out in the world, is traveling around and thinking about how he uses food in feeding people and conversation and that experience to kind of continue to make communities for himself and for other people all over the place.
failure, success. But to create a commodity, so we're artists and we're makers, and you make a thing. And I've, for a long time, since even, I guess, during my senior year, I questioned making objects because I couldn't see value in it. I mean, I saw that it did a thing, people enjoy it, you could trade capital for it, but really, I was just learning about art as an experience, you know, in art history, in school, you know, art doesn't have to be this object. I mean, I came to art as a sculptor, and so I was like, okay, well, how do I use these skills of making a thing, providing an aesthetic experience, but, and it started with an interest in minimizing my carbon footprint. So it's like, cool, if you make a pancake, you aren't, you know, firing up a kiln, right? So you're already, like, I made one artwork, and the carbon footprint is X amount lower. And then you spend, you know, money on materials, and it's like, okay, so I purchased these food items, which one might purchase or have in their possession at any given time anyway. And then I say, okay, I'm going to use this to create my artwork. And so that's the beginning. And then you make it. So you're like, cool, I made a sculpture. And you put a sculpture in a gallery, and people go look at it, and maybe they buy it, maybe they love it, maybe it's in their life all the time, right? But this doesn't compete with that. You know, I made this item, and you consume it, and it's over, right? But theoretically, that experience of being there while it was made, by being nourished in that moment, by exchanging with me, the maker, it's created this experience that's valuable to you as much as maybe having seen a sculpture in a gallery at any given time. Even one you've purchased, like if you purchase it, it's in your life forever. But if you had this really great experience, that too could be in your life forever. And so, you know, I started like in that place. But that was even like the very art savvy portion of it. You know, I also became extremely interested in like, okay, what am I providing to the viewer? Like, what are their needs? It's like, oh, are you hungry? Like, I can satisfy this need of yours with my artwork. Like, I'm providing you experience, but also, like, you were hungry. You were this, like, basic human need, and I solved it. Like, you no longer need nutrients. And, I mean, that was another amazing thing. Is like, okay, what do I provide to you? I'm giving you an experience. It's aesthetic. It's oral factor. You smell it. You taste it. But then also, by using quality ingredients, we start to encourage this conversation of, like, what are we eating? Why? What are we putting into our bodies? Where does it come from? It susses out all these other deeper narratives that, like, are the target and focus of my previous and current extremely conceptual artworks. You know, by using raw milk to make the pancakes, or using raw milk and smuggling it across state lines and doing it in a legal way. You know, these ingredients are also important to the process. It's important to me as the maker. I hope that by making the work, it also becomes important to the viewer. It's like, cool, we're going to have a show in your gallery. Like, what's this going to cost? Like, well, I need, you know, concrete and, like, fucking diamonds. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be, like, you know, $100,000, $300,000. And then when you audit my work, it's like, oh, yeah, like, I went to the grocery store. I spent, like, $50. I fed, like, 100 fucking people. And everyone had this, like, really great experience. There were shapes and colors in a room. And everyone took it home with them, you know? It's not like, cool, like, I saw the show. They made this artwork. Like, you took the artwork, like, inside of you. And you carried it and paid it forward to other people. You engaged with them with a full belly. You weren't a fucking asshole. You weren't hangry. Like, you just, like, wow, I had a really great time. Like, I met some people. You know, feeding people does that. It's part of culture. Sharing meals is a basic human it's, you know, I have this friend, and she told me a story about when she was working with chimpanzees. She witnessed this moment where a beta male, when they come upon food, immediately they have to like scream and shout and let the pack know that there's food. And he was so starving that he was like trying to shove it in his mouth so he couldn't make the sound. But like the whole point is that eating together and breaking bread together is foundational to social creatures on this planet. And so I'm working with that as a medium, just on the first level. You know, there are chefs who are making more beautiful creations than me, but they're also like in the kitchen, and like maybe they come out and say, look, this is quail. But, you know, it's important for me to like share a moment within sharing a meal.
I've known Michael Stevenson since he came here as a freshman. Of course, it was not possible to not notice Michael Stevenson. He was my student in at least 2 courses, and especially memorable in the summer course that he took with me, during which we took a trip to New York City. And I was very reluctant to eat sushi because I was afraid of eating raw fish. So he convinced me to stop the van at a town where there was a sushi restaurant, and I ate my first sushi there. And I've been a fan of sushi ever since. And every time I eat sushi, I think of Michael Stevenson.
That's amazing.
But it was a great trip, and he was, of course, a tremendous energy, source of energy for all of us. And that's very significant about Michael. He is a source of energy, and he applies this energy very successfully as a catalyst. Michael's work Michael, with his work, intends to show what is possible. Socially speaking, we are all social beings, but we are led to forget that we are social beings. And Michael is a reminder that we are social beings, and we couldn't be we if we weren't. He actively, with his behavior and with the projects that he undertakes, he intends to show as an example what is really possible and within reach. This is possible. That's what he is showing us. So it is not necessarily, it is not an economically viable system that he is proposing. So it's entirely not economical in the sense of the economy that is in place. So he is critiquing in his work our economic structure that limits our social interactions, and that's very significant in terms of what he's trying to accomplish with his work, I think.